Some cars today are basically rolling laptops with cup holders. But if you rewind a few decades, automakers were throwing ideas at cars the way a toddler throws spaghetti at a wall. Back then, the car industry was like the Wild West. Everyone wanted to stand out. And the safety regulators were still figuring out how to prevent dashboards from knocking people out like a heavyweight boxer. So let's take a look at some of the strange, stylish, and downright, what were they thinking? Features that once rolled proudly down the road. Let's start with cars that manipulated airflow in unusual ways. Engineers gave us little triangle windows, flipped out vents, and bizarre glass slits, popularly found in models like the 1955 Chevrolet Bel Air and the 1960s Ford F-Series trucks. These windows were designed to funnel fresh air inside. In theory, it was clever. In practice, you either got a tiny breeze or a face full of dust and bugs. Moving from airflow corks to roof, car makers then introduced roof systems that wanted to be convertibles but weren't. Automakers slapped vinyl on solid roofs, bolted on removable panels, or created half-baked Targa-style ideas. But fast forward a few years and you have roofs bubbling in the sun. If you think car seats today were just about lumbar support and heated cushions, the past was a different story. Back then, seating wasn't always designed for comfort or safety. It was about the vibe. The kind of vibe where you look cool pulling up to the diner, even if your back was screaming halfway there. Take the front bench seat, a staple in cars like the 1957 Chevy Bel Air, 1960s Ford Galaxy, and even hanging on into the early 90s with the Chevy Capri. These things were basically rolling couches, perfect for squeezing in an extra body or two, but hit a corner too fast and suddenly everyone was in your lap. And then came the swivel seats of the 70s. Chrysler brought them to cars like the 74 Dodge Monaco and Chrysler Cordoba. Meanwhile, GM tried it with the Chevy Monte Carlo. But here's the evolution. Seating didn't start in the modern ergonomic bucket you're used to. It came from carriage-style benches, literally copied from horse-drawn rides. Over time, engineers thought maybe people wanted seats that didn't try to eject them during a lane change. Enter the bucket seat, tighter, more supportive, and ready for seat belts and airbags. Sometimes boring is better, especially if it saves you a trip to the chiropractor. But what about comfort? Well, in the past, automakers treated the cabin like a fashion show. They weren't asking, is this durable? They were asking, will this make people gasp when you open up the door? And the result was a parade of fabrics and gimmick leathers that looked bold but aged like fast food left in the sun. Back in the 70s and 80s, automakers went wild with interiors that cared more about flash than function. You had the Chevy Impalas and Oldsmobile Cutlass Supremes rocking velour and crushed velvet that looked straight out of a Vegas casino lodge. Then there was Chrysler, doubling down on luxury with cars like the LeBaron and Dodge Diplomat. Their velour wore out so fast it went from premium to pancake flat in record time. But don't forget the oddballs, the AMC Pacer and Gremlin, with vinyl and cloth mashups that turned into personal ovens in summer and split like cheap luggage a couple of years later. Now picture this. You're on a long drive in the 70s or 80s. No Spotify, no Bluetooth, no TikTok blasting through the speakers. If you wanted entertainment or a way to talk to the car next to you, you'd had to get creative. And man, did automakers come up with some strange solutions. Before smartphones turned every car into a rolling Wi-Fi hotspot, people relied on old-school car-to-car communication. Some cars had two-way radios installed, letting you chat with your buddy in the car behind you. Others just cranked the windows down and yelled. But let's not forget the CB radio craze. Everybody wanted to play trucker for a day, even if they were just cruising to the grocery store. Entertainment was its own battlefield. Radios and music systems came in formats that feel almost alien today. First you had 8 tracks, clunky cartridges that loved to jam right when your favorite song came on, then cassettes, which at least let you rewind but usually ended up getting eaten alive by a tape deck. CDs were a revelation until you hit a pothole and the music skipped like a DJ scratching a record. And because car stereos were hot targets for thieves, some came with detachable faceplates. Driving today feels pretty standardized, right? Wheel in front, pedals at your feet, shifter somewhere by your hand. Easy, predictable. But back in the day, automakers treated controls like an art project, and the results was some downright bizarre setups. The 1961 Chrysler Turbo Flight concept rocked an airplane-style yoke, because why not pretend you're flying to the moon on your morning commute? The Citroen SM of the 70s also gave us a single-spoke oval, futuristic but divisive. Then there was the shifting madness. You had column shifters sticking out of the steering column, floor shifters between the seats, push-button selectors on the dash, even a few that use levers in place no sane driver would expect. The logic seemed to be, if we make it quirky, people will think it's high-tech. The problem was that half the time, owners spent more energy figuring out where the gear lever actually was than driving the car itself. And don't even get me started on the foot-operated gadgets. The 1957 Chevy Bel Air had high-beam dimmers down on the floor, which quirkily became an issue for drivers who wanted to switch from low to high beams in the dark. Then came the foot-operated parking brake. Cars like the 60s Buick Electra and 70s Ford LTD ditched the handbrake lever and gave you a giant pedal to mash like an arcade button. To release it, you had to pull a separate handle because, of course, one step wasn't enough. Here's the thing about safety. Automakers have always tried to make cars safer, but tried is the key word. Before airbags and advanced sensors, a lot of so-called safety features did the exact opposite of what they were supposed to. They either annoyed drivers, caused new problems, or just straight up failed when it mattered most. Let's start with the early attempts at automated protection. Some cars, like the 1990 Toyota Camry, had automatic seatbelts that slid across your chest when you shut the door. Sounds futuristic, right? Except they were slow, clunky, and often jammed halfway, trapping you like a bad carnival ride. Then there were primitive collision sensors that weren't smart enough to tell the difference between a crash and a pothole. Imagine your safety system firing off just because you hit a speed bump too hard. And don't forget the protective systems that just didn't age well. Certain dashboards were padded so aggressively that they looked like sofas, while some steering wheels had giant springy centers designed to cushion impact. They either did nothing in a real accident or turned into extra projectiles. Other cars even added quirky gadgets like pop-up roll bars or clumsy traction gadgets that work better in ads than on the road. Space in cars has always been a puzzle. Today, we take folding seats and clever compartments for granted. But back in the day, designers went wild trying to reinvent storage. Big sedans from Packard, Cadillac, and Lincoln sometimes offered rumble seats, which were extra fold-out seats hidden in the trunk area. You'd flip them open, and suddenly your classy coupe turned into a very unsafe convertible taxi. Also, cars like the Chevrolet Kingswood Estate or Ford Country Squire often had rear-facing jump seats in the cargo area. Technically not in the trunk, but you'd sit facing traffic behind you, usually with minimal padding and no seatbelts. Those hidden spots were cramped, uncomfortable, and usually unsafe. Then there were the spare tire and gas cap oddities. Automakers didn't seem to agree on where anything should go. Some cars mounted spares on trunks, others stashed them under the car, and a few even tucked them inside the cabin like it was an extra passenger. Gas caps were just as chaotic, hidden behind tailgates, buried under license plates, or placed in spots that made every fuel stop a guessing game. If history has taught us anything, it's that today's brilliance is tomorrow's punchline, and 30 years will laugh at touchscreens that distracted drivers more than they help, or oversized grills that look more like vacuums in vehicles. Maybe self-driving modes will end up being the next automatic seatbelt. Well-meaning but flawed. But don't think we're off the hook. Modern rides have their own flavor of what were they thinking? Take the giant touchscreen plastered on dashboards. In 30 years, people might look back and say, wait, they really made drivers scroll through menus while moving at high speeds? What do you think? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video.